The following is a summary of a document titled Maintaining Control Through Lawlessness, the Security and Human Rights Situation in Oromia, Ethiopia. The document is commissioned by the Norwegian Organization for Asylum Seekers and released in Oslo, 2025. The Oromia region, part of Ethiopia, is amidst political turmoil, coupled with insurgency and failures in governance, with clear human rights abuses. The Ethiopian government, headed by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, has increasingly adopted an autocratic posture manifested through restrictions on political opposition and suppression of media, consolidation of power within the Prosperity Party. Mega development projects have exacerbated economic hardship, while an expanding insurgency led by the Oromo Liberation Army has deepened insecurity. The military response of the government has caused civilian deaths, displacement and human rights violations, such as arbitrary detentions, enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings and torture. Governance is sustained through corruption and lawlessness, creating an atmosphere of fear and unpredictability. It adds that without such inclusive governance, accountability and socio-economic reforms, instability in Oromia will continue, with wider implications for stability in Ethiopia as a whole. Oromia still remains fragile in politics and security, with an armed insurgency since 2019 that continues to cause displacement and human rights abuses. The Ethiopian government, hitherto promising democratic reforms, has moved in an increasingly authoritarian direction characterized by centralizing power and subordinating opposition through various means. This report tries to document the intersection of conflict, governance deficits, and human rights violations. This paper shall trace how this strategy of securitization has eroded the legitimacy of government in Ethiopia, making violence a key tool of governance. Historically, the center-periphery model, dominated by the Amhara, has kept the non-Christian, non-Amhara populations, that is, including the Oromo, subjugated throughout history. Violent incorporation under Emperor Menelik set the tone for long-standing resentments against central authority. There are approximately 130 million Ethiopians, ethnically, religiously, very diverse. Oromo, being the largest ethnic group, historically excluded from political and economic power. The Oromo protests and the Kiru. The Kiru youth movement, instrumental in leading protests against the EPRDF regime, catalyzed the ascension of Abiy Ahmed into power. Abiy Ahmed's rule. The erstwhile perceived reformist has gradually transformed himself into a consolidator of power, strangling opposition and eventually forming the Prosperity Party at the cost of dissolving the EPRDF. Political suppression. Opposition leaders were either jailed or exiled, and the media was highly censored. The government increasingly used a narrative of counterterrorism to justify crackdowns. Oromo Liberation Army, OLA, insurgency. The OLA emerged from remnants of the Oromo Liberation Front, or OLF, after its return to Ethiopia in 2018. Initially confined to western Oromia, it expanded into central and southern Oromia. Government response. The Ethiopian National Defense Forces, ENDF, launched military offensives imposing command posts and cutting off communication. Civilians have suffered from indiscriminate killings and forced displacements. Failed peace negotiations. 2 rounds of negotiations in 2023 failed, leading to continued violence. Political repression. The government has cracked down on suspected OLA sympathizers, arresting and disappearing opposition figures. Extrajudicial killings and torture security forces, including informal militia groups, have been blamed for rampant human rights abuses. Kidnappings for ransom. Both state and non-state actors have resorted to enforced disappearances and ransom-based kidnappings. This crisis in Oromia reflects broader governance failures in Ethiopia. It has been made worse by the government, which has relied on militarization and suppression without engaging politically. Further corruption, lawlessness, and an absence of accountability have entrenched a sense of public distrust. Without serious political reforms, a genuine dialogue, economic reforms, and a commitment to human rights, the cycle of violence is unlikely to end.